YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back with my early playoff and Super Bowl predictions. Well, my final predictions a little closer to the season, but I'm excited to share my thoughts today. Starting with my AFC playoff teams and the division winners, the Ravens winning the AFC North and getting that number one overall seed. I'd be surprised, much like a lot of people out there, if they did not win their division, but of course the Bengals with that offense could be a little sneaky. The Chiefs getting the 2 seed. I do think the Chargers have more of a shot than ever to dethrone the Chiefs, but I do have the Chiefs just winning the AFC West. The Buffalo Bills at 3. I think the Patriots are on their way up, but it is too early. It'd be a shocker if the Bills did not win that division. And the Texans in the 4 spot. I definitely can see the Colts, and then definitely think they could be a little sneaky this year. And the Jags, obviously, if Trevor Lawrence stays healthy, I think could make some noise. But I do like the Texans and their defense and the playmakers they added. It's just all about that offensive line and protecting C.J. Stroud. I think they'll have their hiccups, but it's just too talented of a team not to win that division and get a top 4 seed, obviously. And here are my wild card teams in the AFC. I have the Chargers at the 5 seed. And like I said, they have a shot to stop the Chiefs from winning the AFC West, and they have a decent shot. This team really improved, especially through the draft. Year 2 with Harbaugh and company. They'll probably finish around the same record, but I do think no matter what that record is, even if they have less wins than last year, I feel like they are a better team this year, and possibly they could show it in the playoffs. It'll be a rematch from the first round. Texans versus Chargers in the playoffs back-to-back years. The Bengals in that 6 seed spot. The defense is still a problem, but they changed things up, bringing Al Golden in. Offense is going to be elite. It's going to be super explosive. It's all about starting better. It's all about starting the season better. If they do that, they will be in the playoffs. Look at, they started slow last year. Look at the very end of the season. They were better than multiple AFC teams that made the playoffs. Everybody knew that. And they find a way to get in like they deserve this year. And I have the Patriots as the 7 seed, a very favorable schedule. If you look at that schedule, I also, love Mike Vrabel, the coaching staff they brought in. They're just used to winning football games. So that'll play a part. Drake May, big fan. He'll still have his hiccups, but he's going to take a big step up. They improved the offensive line, still a work in progress, but they improved it. Receivers, same thing, a bit of a work in progress, but they definitely improved the defense. It could be nasty. It looks really solid, especially up front in the interior defensive line, what they did there, getting Barmore back, getting Milton Williams in there, and how they drafted on top of all that, on top of the free agency. So really excited about the New England Patriots. I like the Colts, especially if Daniel Jones is starting. It's very tough to keep them out. We could also start talking about the Steelers always find a way. Just today, I don't think they're a top 7 team, but sometimes they get in without being a top 7 team in the AFC. The Broncos, the way they played last year, really surprised me and many people. You could talk about several. The Jags, again, we talked about them possibly being sneaky. The Dolphins, if they stay healthy. The Colts are that next team. It's tough leaving them out. They really improve on defense with the new defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo. They add some serious pieces in the secondary. Either they knock the draft out of the park. Again, I think Daniel Jones is better than people think. He's not great, but he's better than people think. He really fits that Steichen offense. And they have playmakers. They have weapons. Could argue they're better than the Patriots, and that Patriots schedule is very, very, very favorable. It was tough for me to leave the Colts out, as I like the Colts for this year. As long as Daniel Jones is in there, they could play Richardson. Yes, he has the upside, but you can still kind of see the same problems here and there if that's the case. So those are my AFC playoff teams. Now let's go to the actual round by round in the playoffs. Wild card round. You see the winners are listed, and we remove the logos of the teams that have been eliminated. Let's start with 4-5. It was, again, a rematch from last year's playoffs, Texans, Chargers in Houston. And if we go back to last year, I felt like everybody was picking the Chargers in that game. I picked the Texans, and I was oddly confident. I was like, Texans should not be underdogs. They're winning that game, mainly because their defense, and that was the case. This time around, I like the Chargers. I like the Chargers this year. Again, I actually think there's a shot they can win that AFC West, which might seem crazy bold. They dropped the ball a lot in that game last year. They improved, their weapons. I think that running game could be absolutely nasty. Amari Hampton, I think, has a shot to be a star in this game. The running game was good last year. It's going to be even better this year. Opens things up for Herbert in the passing game. Like I said, they improved around Ladd McConkey. Defense was ahead of schedule last year, so I like the Chargers this time around. It'd be Bills, Bengals, 3 versus 6. Remember last time they played in the playoffs, the Bengals not only upset them, but they beat them up pretty good. It could be the same thing this time around. It'll be a shootout, all offense. I just don't trust the Bengals defense enough right now. I'll take the Bills at home. And the Chiefs would play the Patriots. And the Chiefs will win that pretty comfortably with the Patriots ahead of schedule, moving in the right direction. Again, that could be the Colts, could be the Broncos, but I do like the Chiefs in that scenario in the wild card round. So there are your 4 teams left. We would see the Ravens take on the Chargers, and we would see the Chiefs once again take on the Buffalo Bills. Divisional round, I have the Ravens beating the Chargers. Harbaugh brothers face off once again. I just like the Ravens a little bit better at home. The difference they're both going to be explosive teams with high-powered rushing attacks. The difference is the defense. Both good defenses, but the way the Ravens stop the run year in and year out, it's just, that's the difference there in that game. They're both going to run well. Who's going to stop the run a little bit better? Give me the Ravens. And I'll do it. I'll take the Buffalo Bills over the Chiefs. A year ago when I picked the Chiefs in that game in the playoffs, it's like I kind of got the feeling that the Bills will never beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, but now my guts tell me now is the time. Are the Chiefs, it's hard to say they're declining or anything like that, but are they as good as those dynasty-like years, those dominant years with the Bills? Josh Allen take a step up last year. It felt like, he was already really good before that. The running game really took a step up. James Cook elevated himself. Ray Davis is a up-and-coming weapon for them as well, and they add some weapons in the passing game. Could the defense be better this year? That's kind of the question with them, but it feels like they've added some new starters, or at least some new key rotational guys. So part of me is like the Bills just can't beat the Chiefs in the playoffs, but part of me is like the Bills are due. It just cannot keep happening. It's been so close for the Buffalo Bills. 2 years ago, they lost because they were too injured. And last year, there was some games where it was a matter of inches. Bills get them this time around. Ravens-Bills in the AFC title game. And give me the Ravens over the Bills, winning the AFC, going to the Super Bowl. They finally get over that hump. And I've kind of been a believer. I like the Ravens. They're going to be a really good team, a dominant regular season team. And then I've been one, saying they can't get over the hump in the playoffs. I'm not feeling it. Do they have what it takes? Now, I'm feeling it. I think they have what it takes here. I like how the defense improved as the year went on last year. It was actually a little scary early on. Like, with this defense without Mike McDonald, is it a problem? But I love the improvement year in and year out. They stopped the run at a high level. They improve their edge rushers this offseason. Like the secondary as well. Kyle Hamilton, elite safety. Nate Wiggins looks like he's something for them at the cornerback position. Offense, people don't talk about it enough. Lamar Jackson really improved as a passer last year. He was already a good passer, underrated because people knocked him too much, but he needed to get better at it, right? And he did significantly, and he's already an elite runner. Derrick Henry was dominant for them. They had some guys in the passing game step up, and that Rashad Bateman really stood out. Zay Flowers got a little beat up. At the end of the year last year as well. I like the Ravens doing it this year, in the AFC and getting to the Super Bowl. The NFC is so tough to pick out just 7 playoff teams. There are so many teams that could make the playoffs. We're going to have to leave somebody really good out. It pains me a little bit, but I got the Eagles at that 1 seed, winning the NFC East again. Sure, the Commanders with that offense have a shot. The Cowboys I think people sleeping on them a little bit, but the Eagles are just much more complete. I think looking at the defense mainly is the significant difference. So I'm confident. I'm comfortable with them. Could they ban the tush push in the coming days? There's some talk about that. Could they take a hit because of that? Maybe a little bit. I don't know about much. I like them in that 1 spot, the defending Super Bowl champs. Rams at the 2 seed. I want the Niners, though. They have a much easier schedule than the Rams, and they're getting healthier, and that people are sleeping on them. They're a very talented team. Getting a lot of good star players back. Could they win that division? Certainly, but I don't like to base things purely off a schedule and game by game, which the Niners don't really need that to win the division. They still could win the division, but I just feel I feel better about the Rams, I suppose. Defense is young and improving. We saw that last year, especially down the stretch, and they still had their hiccups stopping the run, but young and improving. Offensively, they get better with Devontae Adams, and hopefully the offensive line stays a little healthier and they're a little more organized and figured out, so therefore they could be better this year. NFC North is probably the toughest thing to predict out of all of football this year. If you're predicting the Vikings to win it, the Packers to win it, the Lions to win it, those 3 teams. Hey, maybe the Bears take a massive jump with the new staff because they have some serious talent on their team. Maybe, but if you're predicting any of those top 3 teams, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to debate you. It could go any way because all those teams are that good. But, man, the way the Vikings built that roster, how much they improved and how complete that roster is, how talented, how explosive it is. They may be able to run the ball more effectively now, and they're actually pretty decent when they ran the ball last year, but adding Jordan Mason on top of Aaron Jones, it just feels like this team is built to at least do the damage in the regular season. It's going to be super disappointing, super underwhelming if that roster, that complete roster, can't do it in the regular season, at least make the playoffs, right? So I know they have essentially what feels like a rookie quarterback, even though he's not a rookie, in J.J. McCarthy, first-year starter, starting at quarterback. They overcame Sam Darnold and made him a lot better, so I'm not really worried about the regular season. How do I feel about the Vikings in the playoffs? Could be a different story. We'll touch on that soon. Buccaneers, a very complete roster. They improve off the edge. They improve at corner. They lose Liam Cohen, which is tough, but it's a very complete, solid roster. I think they could be, again, I keep talking about it, what if they just, didn't make the mistakes and got by the Commanders in the first round last year? Who knows what would have happened? This is where it gets really tough. I gotta leave somebody out that's super good and feels like a playoff team, and there's multiple teams more. But we'll start at the 5 seed. The 49ers, I think people are sleeping on. They forget that they were severely injured last year. And, hey, maybe your prediction is that I can't trust them to stay healthy. They're not going to make the playoffs. That's actually fair. But if you're there's a lot of people sitting here saying they're just not good enough, and I just completely disagree with that. Also, you factor in they got a very favorable schedule. They get Robert Saleh back as a defensive coordinator, knows that team, a very good defensive coach. They have talent. They improve through the draft. They get McCaffrey back. They get Ayuk back. Trent Williams missed some games down the stretch last year. The defense gets healthier, obviously, in different spots of that group. But Niners are really well coached, really good football team with stars on it. Feels like George Kittle's getting even better somehow. I thought he was the best tight end in football last year. So in the very favorable schedule, I got them at that 5 seed. They could even win the division. Packers and Lions next. It pains me to leave somebody out, and it happened to be the Commanders. And it's like with that offense, what Jaden Daniels is able to do, what Dan Quinn, that coaching staff, is able to do, how do you leave them out? It's just between the Lions, I just wouldn't have felt right leaving the Lions out after they just got the 1 seed last year. But I do think losing their 2 coordinators, mainly Ben Johnson, offense coordinator, it's going to create an adjustment period, and they could take a hit because of that. I feel like the schedule is tougher for all the NFC North teams this year. And then the Packers, I thought they took a hit last year with Jordan Love getting hurt week 1. That affected them, I thought, all the way through. And remember, they put up a fight with the Eagles in that first round of the playoff, that game, and the defense really got better, and it felt like they improved this offseason. The offensive line's going to be a little bit better. They have a star-starter run, or they have that, stud running game led by a star in Josh Jacobs. So if Love stays healthy, it's really on him. He's going to be more consistent. But if he's healthier, I like the Packers to be able to take a little bit of a step up there. The difference is the Commanders' offense alone could do this, right? They can even take another step up, which is crazy. The defense, I really worry about that defense. It needed to get better this offseason, and it really feels like it kind of got worse. You go Jonathan Allen to him out, Javon Kinlaw in. Yes, Allen missed some games last year. It's tough. They didn't really change anywhere else, and then Fowler was their sack leader. They lost him. It's not really, is he a guy you're going to miss, though? Do they have someone else that they could step up and be that role? Sure, possibly. But they needed to get better stopping the run. They didn't do it. They needed to get better off the edge. They didn't do it. Felt like they got a little worse at safety. I feel like they did get better at corner, though. I did like the draft. It was just a very small draft class. Offense is better. They could be the Bengals of this year, from last year. It's just tough. I felt like I had to find something to... Am I going to leave the Packers out, the Lions out, or does one of those teams win the North and the Vikings? Are they out? You just look at the rosters of these teams, and I worry about the Commanders' defense. Now, they may not be done yet. We are early in the offseason. Technically, summer hasn't even started yet. I feel like their plan was, even early in the offseason, was to trade for Trey Hendrickson. That's why they kind of took a back seat, stayed away from adding edge rushers in, throughout the offseason. They could still trade for a guy like Trey Hendrickson, or maybe it's a surprise it's someone else. Or they could add Jadeveon Clowney at the time of recording this. They did not do that, which I'm going to upload this today, so I don't think they're going to do that. So something like that, Clowney gives them a little bit of boost, or if they get someone, even though he's not the greatest player in the world, I might have to have him in because that's really what they need. But if they trade for a guy like Trey Hendrickson, I mean, that is an insane boost for them, and that's what they need. I might have, at worst, the 6th seed for the Commanders. So it's just me having a problem with the defense right now, not getting better. I mean, they were brutal stopping the run last year, and they need to get after the quarterback a little bit better. So they need to show me some way of improving there. And it's just one thing, just one addition, and improving in one of those categories, boom. Like, I like the Commanders that much more. So that was the slight thing, kind of leaving them out. I do have 3 NFC North teams in the playoffs. Well, they made it last year as well. The Vikings and Lions were disappointing in the playoffs last year. I thought the Packers, they could have got by the Eagles. It started disastrously. We'll talk about that. I still want to talk about the Packers more. But those are my NFC playoff teams. In the wild card round, we were starting to touch on the Packers. I actually have them. They'll play the Vikings. I have the Packers beating the Vikings in the first round of the playoffs, even though I have the Vikings winning the division. But again, it could be the Vikings in that division winner slot. It could be the Lions. It could be the Packers. But couple things here. Yeah, the roster is great. The roster is awesome. I'm excited about it. They can win in different ways. It's why they should win the division, or why they should be a good team at least. First year starting quarterback on top of it's the Vikings. You know, it's hard for me to fully trust them in the playoffs based on what they have done over their entire franchise history, basically. It's hard to fully trust them. And the Packers, I thought, they played the Eagles tough. I was starting to talk about that game in the first round of the playoffs. The defense got better. They played awesome in that game. You know, pretty much shutting down most of the game. The offense didn't give them any help. The Eagles are the Super Bowl champions, you know. And then they started the game disastrously with a questionable call, and you start with a fumble on the opening kickoff. You know, things didn't go their way in that one, obviously, and Jordan Love didn't play that great. So this team could have done a lot more damage. What I'm getting at, I feel like the Packers were better than people think, you know, at the end of last year when it was all said and done. So Jordan Love starting the year with an injury didn't help. So if they stay healthy this year, you know, they can win a playoff game or more. They could be a little sneaky and go the distance. And then it was 2 versus 7. I had the Rams beating the Lions. Again, another game that can go either way in the NFC. All these teams are so tight. Rams at home, I feel like they improved this year. They'll take that game. How is the Lions pass rush? How's Aiden Hutchinson going to be? That's kind of how are they without their coordinators? I keep saying they could be like an Eagles. They can make an Eagles type route, go an Eagles type route. Like the Eagles took a big step down without their coordinators. It felt like they desperately missed them. And then they kind of figured it out, and they won the Super Bowl this past year. So the Lions could take the same path there. And then the Niners and the Bucks, kind of a flip of a coin there. I think the Bucks, yeah, a team I think they could be really sneaky if they didn't blow it against the Commanders in round 1 last year. They had matched up very well with teams like the Eagles and Lions. They proved that. So where could they have gone, right? So tough to have them going out after the first round. But the Niners, if they're here, I would assume they're somewhat healthy. They're a very good team if they're healthy, and people kind of forget that right now. So I'll take the Niners in that one. So that leaves us with Eagles versus Packers again. We saw them in the wild card round last year, and then Rams versus Niners, the NFC West battle. And I'll take the Eagles over the Packers and the Rams over the Niners, but 2 games that could go either way. The Eagles' offense had some problems with the Packers last year, and the Packers can be much better. They just made too many mistakes. They started the playoff game with a fumble on the opening kickoff that was questionable. But it's still tough to sit here and just have the Packers going into Philly, I guess depending on, you know, who's what seed and how teams are playing. But in this scenario, just tough for them to win that one for me. I think like a team like the Commanders, if they make the playoffs, maybe can match up the Eagles, even though the Eagles, you know, got through them pretty easily. But it's all about matchup in the playoffs, obviously. And the Rams and the Niners, I mean, if the Niners both these teams are on injury watch, right? More so the Niners, but both these teams over the years have been durability concerned teams we have had concerns with. But mainly the Niners. And if the Niners are healthy going into that game, it's a tricky one because the Rams, if they had a weakness, I feel like you can pound the football. I feel like you can run the football on them. You know, that's somewhere. They did improve adding Poona Ford. That was big for the LA Rams. So they had even though there wasn't a lot of additions, they had a really good offseason. But if the Niners are healthy with Christian McCaffrey and on the offense line, they can run the football, control the clock in that game. They got a pretty good defense under Robert Saleh. You know, so that is where they could be a little sneaky. But in LA, you know, no, it's not a far travel really for the 49ers, but I like what the Rams did. Again, adding Poona Ford could boost that run defense a little bit. They still have some holes looking at linebacker and corner. They still could add a corner here. It's early in the offseason. But the offense should be super explosive. I still think the Niners, they were elite defense for a bit, and they kind of went downhill, and they're starting to get it going again with some young players, but it's still maybe not fully back to where it was, even though they do add a great defensive coach that they're familiar with in Saleh. So the Rams offense could have a day in this one. Give me the Rams, and then we have Eagles, Rams in the NFC title game. And let's change it up a little bit. We're going to go with the LA Rams beating the Eagles, a rematch from a playoff game last year, which was fun. And it felt like the Rams could have had it for a bit. Then we felt like it slipped away. And oh my God, they actually have a shot somehow, even though nothing went their way. And I think they get them this time around. The Eagles lost some pieces. I mean, they could win that game. They're still going to be really, really good. It almost feels like they could be getting better. But the Rams adding Davante Adams and he showed it down the stretch of last year. People thought, oh, maybe, little start was a little slow with the Jets. Maybe he's declining. And then all of a sudden he was ridiculous again. Now he's got Matthew Stafford in this offense. That is a huge addition on top of already having Puka Nacua. Again, the offensive line got to stay healthy, but as it was healthier, it got a lot better. They did have some issues blocking Jalen Carter. Could that be the case again? But the defense I thought was actually well coached last year, even though had the change, losing Raheem Morris, and the young talent continuing to improve. So I like where the Rams are going right now for heading into this year. And it's a team you do have to worry about the pass first, but they can run the shit out of the football at Kyren Williams as well, and they have some other options. Could Corum take that next step up as well? But a team that really feels like it could be improving here. So I have the Rams going to the Super Bowl out of the NFC. Super Bowl 60, my current predictions, Ravens versus Rams. This would be a hell of a ball game. I like the Ravens defense a lot, and I mentioned it during the video. It really improved as the year went on. There was some doubt a little bit early, but I love that going into this year. They're really improving. So I love the defense, but man, if there was an offense that could score some points and match up against the Ravens defense, I feel like the Rams are that team, because the Ravens do the best thing about that defense every single year. They stop the run at such a high level. I respect that. You have to be able to stop the run. We saw it last year, really, how good some of these running teams were and how teams struggle to stop the run, couldn't go the difference. But so that's so important. But with the Rams, your first priority, your first, what your worry is about is that passing game, right? And since they're so focused on that, and I do think Stafford, Puka Nacua, Davante Adams, they can play pretty well against the Ravens pass defense, actually, because they're focused on that. It actually can open up the run game a little bit for Kyren Williams and company. So even though the Ravens defense is very, very solid, one of the better ones in football usually, the Rams actually match up pretty well there. But you look at the Ravens offense against the Rams defense, a young, improving defense. But, man, a team like that with Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, there's more than that, but just that alone, I think the Rams would really struggle to stop the run in that game. And then Lamar, the way he's improving as a passer, he showed that last year, and Rashad Bateman stepping up. Zay Flowers getting healthy for this year. Mark Andrews out to kind of prove himself if they still have him. Likely getting better. Could have got like Charlie Kolar step up. They add DeAndre Hopkins, even though he's declining. He's another veteran you'd like to have in there. He can't hurt. Offensive line for the Ravens actually could be a little bit of a question. They always coach it better than where it's at. I'm not worried about it. They always develop and do very well. They drafted pretty well there as well. But it's a little bit of a question. Like, how's it going to be on the interior? Will these guys step up? Are they going to move a guy like Emory Jones inside? But and this offense could really take it to the Rams defense. So what I'm getting at is I actually think this would be a shootout of a Super Bowl, a high-scoring offensive outing. And I've actually said in the past, like, the Ravens are a great team. I just do not see them at all. I don't see them getting over the hump. They can go far. That's changing for me right now. I think the Baltimore Ravens win the Super Bowl. That's my early summer prediction right now. Baltimore Ravens do it. This is their time. I feel like they're built. They're well coached. Lamar Jackson. The big thing for me, there's a lot of big things, but Lamar Jackson, I've always been a Lamar fan. I've never doubted his passing ability, but him stepping up as a passer even more last year doesn't get talked about enough, and he's already a dominant runner, and you have Derrick Henry in there. Still, he's not losing a step. Doesn't feel like it, at least. Young players in the offensive line, the receiver unit could take a step up. They got good tight ends. I want them to, there's some talk about them moving on from Mark Andrews. I want them to keep Mark Andrews for this prediction to stay alive, because I know Andrews hurt them last year at the end. They are still better with him than without him. All right? You need multiple tight ends that can play at a high level in that offense. And I think Todd Monken taking a step up. Again, the defense going from a little sauce at some, without Mike McDonald last year to, oh my God, it's getting good. It's getting good. Oh, this is a really good defense. And the way they stop the run, stopping the run is so important for winning big games, but championship football. It's even in a passing league. It's last year kind of became more of a running league, but even when it's a high volume passing league, you have to stop the run to win championship football. Because if you can't, it's an easy game plan. Teams could control the clock, just pound the football, we win. Let's get out of there with a victory. It's an easy way to victory. So love the Ravens do that, and it feels like they're improving everywhere else as well. They add, Away is stepping up. They didn't just add him. I mix my words up, but he's stepping up. He's getting better, but they add guys like Mike Green, who, can get after the quarterback, and get better. And they had a pretty good draft as well throughout that secondary. Nate Wiggins is the guy that's getting better. Kyle Hamilton is scary to think he's still getting better because he's already an elite safety. I'm feeling the Baltimore Ravens. I think the difference, the Rams feeling them this year as well. The difference, even though I think this is a high-scoring affair, I think the Ravens control the clock. I think that running game with Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry is just going to be too much for the Rams. I do like their defense better than the Rams as well. So that'll be the difference today. In the summer here, going into the summer, I have the Ravens winning the Super Bowl, and we'll see what my final I usually don't change too much, but there's still moves to be made here in the rest of the offseason. I think we could actually see some more trades, or at least one big trade. What's going to happen with Trey Hendrickson, and then Jadeveon Clowney's a free agent right now, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens, how teams can improve themselves the rest of the way here before the season starts. And it's always fun right before the season. There's some trades and there's some surprising cuts, and then signings. So we'll have you covered for all that. So let me know your guys' thoughts. The toughest part about this was, I think the toughest thing is predicting who's going to win the NFC North, and then who's a star-studded team, who's a big-time team that's going to be left out of the NFC playoffs. That's the tricky part. But like, subscribe to notifications on. It's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.